Hi and Assalamualaikum everyone. Today we will discuss about the collapse of Pacific Gas and Electric Company. Before we start, I will introduce to you guys of our lineup for today's meeting. This is our content. So this is our lineup for today. First is Hudana Tasha, and then second is Nabiha, third is Syahmi Aiman, fourth is Amra Shafika with me, and lastly Hazwani Hadira.
So now I'm going to continue this presentation and talk about abstract. So the Pacific Gas and Electric Company is a publicly traded investor-owned utility in the United States. The company's corporate offices are located in San Francisco, California at the Pacific Gas and Electric Building. 5.2 million residences in the northern two-thirds of California receive their electricity and natural gas from PG&E, which extends from Bakersfield and northern Santa Barbara County almost to the Nevada and Oregon state lines. Prior utility companies combined on October 10, 1905 to form PG&E, which by 1984 had grown to be the largest electric utility business in the United States. PG&E is one of the six investor-owned government-regulated electric companies in California. The company protection Cal Fire conducted investigation and determined that the company was mostly responsible for two separate and deadly wildfires in California in 2018 and also 2019. The former finding of guilt resulted in losses in the federal bankruptcy court. PG&E declared on January 14, 2019 that company has filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy as a result of its role in the terrible wildfires that occurred in Northern California in 2017 and also 2018. According to U.S. bankruptcy judge Dennis Motley, the PG&E bankruptcy plan was eventually authorized on Saturday, June 20, 2020, realizing the company's objective of being released by June 30, 2020. We also learned about the demise and bankruptcy of the specific corporation in this historical case study.
For introduction, on October 10, 1905, the California Gas and Electric Corporation and the San Francisco Gas and Electric Company amalgamated to become the Pacific Gas and Electric Company (PG&E). Sacramento is where the Pacific Gas and Electric Company plant is. As a result of the merger, California Gas and Electric Company now has access to sizable San Francisco market and a solid foundation for additional financing. In response, the San Francisco Gas and Electric Company improved its electrical infrastructure, which has previously been solely run by steam-operated generating facility, has was unable to compete with hydroelectric low cost. And then, follow the merger, engineers and management from each organization aim to coordinate and integrate the two systems. The two businesses, however, keep their unique corporate identities up until 1911. And then in 1930, PG&E started delivering natural gas to Northern California and San Francisco. With a composter station that contains a cooling tower every 300 millis, which is 418 kilometers in Topaz, Arizona, on the state boundary, and close the town to Hinkley, California. The world's longest pipeline links the Texas gas field to the north of California. With the advent of natural gas, the business start to close its operations and population gas Thus, while it made sure some operations were always ready, our team created this report because we want to improve quality of workplace environment in this company.
Okay, I'm also going to talk about the objective. So, based on the report on best environmental management practices, the goal of this paper is to provide a case study on how to reduce the likelihood of an event that a firm in the electrical and also electronic equipment sector when it goes bankrupt. The following objectives are mentioned in order to make sure the aim is realized.
Okay, continuing on with the method, we use two methods for this study case. First is the qualitative research and second is the problem-oriented research. For qualitative research, observations, textual or visual analysis from research books and websites are some examples of the non-numerical data that can be generated using this method for the study case. And then the problem-oriented research, the goal of this form of research methodology is to determine the precise nature of the issue and the ideal course of the action.
Moving to main body, there is three causes that we can get from our topic from today. Firstly is lack of access generating capacity. Pacific Gas and Electric was fallen twice into bankruptcy back in 2001 and 2019. This 2001 bankruptcy happened in summer when the Northwest states and California decided to reduce the range of hydroelectric power available because back in 1998, a change over regulation of California's public utilities, which including PG&E, has occurred. The California Public Utility Commission (CPUC) established the price that PG&E may charge customers and mandated that they provide as much electricity as the consumer requested at the rates established by the CPU. However, it does not last any longer. These changes of contract has affected the PG&E company because usually long-term contract with the Bonneville Dam and other sources allow PG&E to purchase cheap hydroelectric power, but the amount of available electric power generation capacity that could be produced within the state or purchased under long-term contract outside of the state was reduced by the drop, delay in the approval of new power facilities, and market manipulation. Due to a lack of excess generating capacity, PG&E was obligated to purchase electricity from providers outside of California that did not have long-term contract in order to fulfill the demands. As we know, the higher the demand is, the higher price range will be. On April 6, 2001, PG&E has declared its bankruptcy on Chapter 11. Chapter 11 is permits reorganization under the bankruptcy laws of the United States. The utility, PG&E company, emerged from bankruptcy in April 2004 after paying its thousands of creditors $10.2 billion. Moving to the cause its bankruptcy in 2019, Pacific Gas and Electric (PG&E) faced possible liabilities of $30 billion from many wildfires in the year 2015 to 2018. This started the bankruptcy process on January 14, 2019, with a 15 days notice of intention to file for bankruptcy protection. Because fire survivors are uninsured creditors with the same priority as bond holders and will only receive payment in proportion to the size of their claim if anything is left over after secure and priority claims are paid. PG&E Corporation, the parent company of PG&E, filed for bankruptcy protection on January 29, 2019. They almost certainly won't receive full payment as a result of this. PG&E had until June 30, 2020 to emerge from bankruptcy in order to take part in the AB 1054 Credit California State Disaster Insurance Fund, which aids utilities in paying for future wildfire claims. The corporation has 32 bond issues totaling around $17.5 billion in outstanding debt, according to C Bonds. PG&E anticipates the process to take 2 years. Gavin Newsom, the governor of California, stated his worry in April when the bondholders were developing a plan to save the firm from bankruptcy that the new bond members would not be well versed in California's law and regulation and would not have experience managing a utility security.
Hmm. Uh-uh.
Moving to the effect of this disaster that happened. After the bankruptcy, Pacific Gas and Electric (PG&E) start the business operation as usual, where the light will be on again and the utility workers will be back to work. However, PG&E will be able to provide a reorganization plan to cut costs and free up assets if it filed for Chapter 11. According to Feldstein, a judge is typically appointed to mediate in order to bring most parties to an agreement. The plan's viability, good faith, and benefit to creditors would then be confirmed by the bankruptcy court. Although it may request an extension, PG&E would have 4 months to submit a restructuring plan because the filing results in a hold-on lawsuit against PG&E. Bankruptcy may have an impact on while the victims seeking compensation. Numerous campfire victims have already filed lawsuits against PG&E, accusing the utility of carelessness and violating health and safety regulations. That follows dozens of fire-related claims that were filed in 2017. The California Public Utilities Commission only authorized PG&E's reorganization proposal after adding a number of requirements meant to pressure the business to perform better, as requested by Governor Gavin Newsom. It is necessary for PG&E to reconstruct its board of directors and establish regional operational divisions. Additionally, the panel established a procedure that, in theory, would be a power deterrent should PG&E continue to cause terrible tragedies or otherwise disobey its legal obligations, as it works to provide electricity and natural gas to 16 million people at reasonable prices, upgrade an aging network of power to its resource mix to comply with California renewable energy laws. The monopoly utility with will still be tasked with juggling the demands of shareholders and ratepayers. A rising climate, which is causing larger, more devastating flames, will be backdrop to all these duties. In order to insulate itself from future fire liability totaling tens of billions of dollars, PG&E filed for bankruptcy protection in January 2019. The corporation still faces significant risk even after restructuring its debt and agreeing to pay $25.5 billion in lawsuits resulting from fires. With $38 billion in debt, PG&E is coming out of bankruptcy with far more than the $22 billion. It started with additionally, if it soon start another disastrous fire, investors and lenders may leave forever, forcing California to take over the utility. The scale of the difficulties the new CEO of PG&E will face is overwhelming. The cooperation managed 125,000 miles of electric power lines, many of which pass through remote, wooded areas where defective wires might start wildfires. Even now, after several years of upheaval brought on by wildfires, PG&E has underinvested in maintenance for decades and is far from accomplishing its objective for fire prevention programs like tree removal and grid hardening. More than 200 mayors, country commissioners, city council members, and other local leaders joined Ricardo's coalition to demand that PG&E become a customer-owned cooperative on behalf of the majority of its users. They said that co-op structure would allow for lower rates because the utility would not have to make a profit for shareholders and could borrow money at a lower cost than a private corporation. They, they, it would also align the interests of the business and its user. Bill Johnson, the former CEO of Progress Energy and the Thames Valley Authority, oversaw the management team, and PG&E announced in April 2019 would take over as business entered bankruptcy. In statement released on November 1, 2019, California Governor Gavin Newsom urged PG&E to achieve a consensual conclusion to the bankruptcy case in order to set up a meeting with wildfire victims, PG&E officials, and investors. The state of California will not hesitate to step in and restructure the utility if an agreement could not be reached. PG&E greed and mismanagement as well as the company's disregard for fortifying its infrastructure and burying its transmission lines in risky locations were cited by Newsom as causes of the utility incapacity to supply energy and the shutdowns a week earlier. They just didn't do their job, Newsom said. More than 101 public leaders, including 21 other mayors and the majority of PG and its customers, have endorsed Sam Ricardo's proposal to transform the utility into a customer-owned cooperative, one of the most difficult bankruptcies in American history. This one involving PG&E was the biggest utility bankruptcy ever. Patty Pop's departure from CMS Energy on December 1, 2020, and her appointment as CEO of Pacific Gas and Electric on January 4, 2001, were both announced in November 2022.
Continuing on with the controversy around environmental problem, there were three controversy that took place within the organization. First is they were accused of purposely increasing the bills. New electric meters were introduced by PG&E in the middle of 2010 to replace the older mechanical electric meters. After their meters were replaced with smart meters, customers complained that the energy costs had gone up. They accused the corporation of purposely increasing the bills and questioned the accuracy of the new meters. The California Public Utilities Commission commissioned an investigation, and the research company reported that one of the 613 smart meters field tests, 611 meters were successfully tested and 100% passed average registration accuracy. One meter was found to have serious errors and was malfunctioning on arrival, while another was found to have serious event errors upon installation. There were also allegations that the business disgraded customers' requests to hold off on replacing their mechanical meters. Next is that protested the removal of private and public trees. In 2014, to clear trees from over 7,000 miles of high-pressure gas transmission pipeline in California, PG&E launched the $500 million four-year Pipeline Pathways initiative, afterwards known as the Community Pipeline Safety Initiative. According to PG&E, tree removal was required to give emergency access in the event of an incident under a tree and safeguard pipelines from the tree roots. Many protested the removal of private and safe public trees. According to local opposition groups, the safety concerns made by PG&E about tree removal are false, since tree removal speeds up and decreases the cost of aerial pipeline monitoring. The last one is that they face slower price growth rates. PG&E is anticipated to face slower price growth rates, especially if there are high emission allowance charges because it utilizes less natural gas than its rivals.
And last part from main body is solution. According to BEMP report, in order to maintain a good image and service toward customer, Pacific Gas and Electric (PG&E) should spread the word of changes that they make over mechanical meters. Some people in California perhaps did not get the news of its changes. PG&E should give notice for the citizen to get informed in at least 3 months earlier so that the customer can be more prepared over the changes that they are going to face. Lack of information will cause inconvenience for customers and make them surprised with the sudden changes. Second, PG&E company should find another better place to build company pipeline safety initiative. The trees are meaningful to the locals since it helps the environment better in keeping the clean air. Without trees around, any incident could occur, such as a landslide because there are no more tree roots that can hold the ground. Not just that, when there is pipeline, there will also be a leaking pipeline system. This leaking will risk the locals' life. As we know, in pipeline system, there is a danger gas such as nuclear. A nuclear gas contains a lot of chemicals that can affect anyone's physical and health. Next, after the pipeline explosion in San Bruno 2010, which was caused by similar incompetence of the part of PG&E, the company was fined $110 million by the state of California. This has caused shortage in their budget. So, in order to make sure that they obey the state laws, a monthly check has to be made. This way, PG&E company won't be brave enough to put its own worker in danger and endanger Californians through a variety of unethical business activities because they know they are running out of much budgets. They will not be confident enough since they know they have to pay for every wrong actions that take over their workers and others. Lastly, in order to avoid monopoly and demand extensive upkeep, the renewable resource the renewable sources can be used to share electricity. This BEMP broadly applicable to all companies of the sector. This can be done by purchasing verified green electricity or own production of electricity from renewable energy sources. Both regulators' requirement and voluntary action done by enterprises or consumers are included in efforts to increase the amount of electricity produced using renewable energy sources, RES-E, such as electricity from solar system, wind power, or hydropower, which is supply of green electricity usually at a higher premium price.
Next is recommendation. Based on the conclusion in this case study, we try to find a way to solve this problem based on all the things that have been suggested in the case study. So we find a way on the initiative by studying the causes of bankruptcy and how to solve it. Among them are three. Firstly is safety, reducing wildfire risk to close to zero as possible. And Richard is an advisor to 58 cities and 10 counties, has promoted plans to convert PG&E to customer-owned utilities. The bankruptcy court approved PG&E application and will be able to access $21 billion in state funds to protect it and other California investor-owned utilities from massive fire liabilities. PG&E plans to invest about $40 billion over 5 years to tie in with its forest fire mitigation efforts, including enhanced plant clearing along 1,800 miles of distribution channels, closing or buying another 240 miles of lines, installing hundreds of cameras and weather stations, and using nearly 600 grid division devices to reduce the scope of fire prevention interference. In addition to provide, proving how many grid miles have been cleared or of hanging tree branches and the number of transmission tower inspected, PG&E should take steps to better understand the risk its power grid faces across mountainous and forested regions facing increasingly drying and windy weather as a result and climate change. Secondly is reliability. Invest in distribute energy for fire prevention firefighting. Microgrid that combine generator, solar, battery and distribution grid control are the most likely solution for large customer with critical backup needs. About 110 megawatts of microgrid capacity now exists in PG&E territory, and it has combined customer-owned, distribute clean energy with rate-based utility investment to manage it for reliability, which could be a solution if it can generate valuable public benefit to justify cost to ratepayers. However, the CPUC needs to work on microgrid proceeding to justify such collaborative efforts, and state lawmakers need to debate several bills this year to accelerate key community resolution efforts. Thirdly is meeting clean energy goals for an ever-changing future. PG&E is still busy finding resources to meet the needs of the entire system. PG&E announced a contract for 400 to 23 megawatts or nearly 1.7 gigawatts hour of energy storage system to help. A contract for meet statewide needs for resources to maintain grid stability in the absence of natural gas power plant to be shut down in the coming years. It is also responsible for securing a zero carbon source to replace the 2.2 gigawatt Diablo Canyon nuclear power plant by the time it closes in 2025, a huge hole that may need to fill by battery power renewable energy. While this may be less immediately pressing problem for PG&E than prevent fires, support high risk customer and maintain its financial viability, they will not find it easier to resolve it by postponing the debate on it.
As for the conclusion of this case study on the company chosen based on the BEMP report in the electrical and electronic equipment manufacturing sector given, we were able to analyze the environmental problem of the chosen organization. With BEMP document as a reference, we found solutions to problems and controversies that occur inside the PG&E and studied how bankruptcy within the company took place. As BMP is applicable to all companies in the EEE sector, with early exposure of knowledge, and the PG&E company could take early measures to avoid controversies by allowing organizations to evaluate, report, and improve their environmental performance. Controversies that involve customers, like when the new meter that has been introduced by PG&E, it has a backlash from customers. The BEMP report has its own guidance on best practice if referred to it on an early notice. The controversies discussed above has its own claim and solution with the guidance of the BEMP report. As PG&E has been reported of bankruptcy twice, the organization should have taken precautious steps after being called out for bankrupt once.
For the appendices, we share for a three figure. First figure is California deadline wildfire. Uh, the situation is fire at 10:45 a.m. That campfire, which has killed dozens, quickly devastated the town of Paradise within hours of starting. Second figure is the situation that how PG&E bankrupt and responsible for more than 1,500 fires in California. And the last figure is the view of San Bruno fire on 9 September 2010.
And that is all from us. Thank you.